You might never know that Lumen is ruining your scene performance, and yet you cannot get the target quality that you are aiming for. So in today's video, we will discuss tips for Lumen that will improve your lighting immediately. So first of all, we need to go to project settings to ensure we have the proper setup for our project. So go here down into rendering, and first of all, we need to ensure we have dynamic global illumination set to Lumen, and same goes for reflections method. And then if we wanted to use software ray tracing, which is the cheapest option that Lumen can use that will work on low profile hardware, and this basically is using the mesh distance fields to trace against, and it uses the detailed tracing of the mesh distance fields for the first 2 meters, and then it fallbacks to global tracing, which is using global distance field, and it's better and faster for calculation. So in order to ensure we are using software ray tracing, we need to have use hardware ray tracing when available to be turned off, and support hardware ray tracing to be turned off as well, and generate mesh distance fields to be enabled. And also we need to go here in platforms in Windows, and we ensure we have shader model 6 enabled so we can start using it. Software ray tracing still have some limitations. It's not supported for all type of meshes, and it needs the meshes having a specific thickness, at least 10 centimeters, to ensure we don't have any light leaking. And still it's not supporting a lot of materials or shaders like the world position offset, and there are a lot more that is still limited. Unlike the hardware ray tracing, which supports a wide variety of options, and to ensure we can use it, the best option quality is first to turn off generate mesh distance fields so we are not falling back to software ray tracing, because by default Unreal get back to it to save some more performance. And then we need to ensure support hardware ray tracing is turned on, and use hardware ray tracing when available is turned on as well. And in this method, it uses more accurate representation of the triangles and pixels of the screen, so it can have more details in here, and we can visualize it by going to let, lumen, and lumen scene. Currently it's using something called surface cache, but if we get back here to our project and change this ray lighting mode to head lighting for reflections, and also we need to ensure we don't override it in here. So now, as you can see, it has better representation of the meshes. This is surface cache, it's lower resolution, and this is head lighting for reflections. It's already better, and even head lighting is much better, and we will go in depth in them. And also, we need to ensure that we are using better ambient occlusion, because by default, if we wanted to go here in buffer visualization and scroll down to ambient occlusion, is set to white, which is not actually working with ambient occlusion at all, but Lumen is working with it on its own calculations. So in order to have better ambient occlusion, we have to go here, scroll down for allow static lighting, ensure it's turned off. And if you want to use screen space ambient occlusion with Lumen, you can use these two console commands. First one is r.lumen.screen prop gather.short range AO, set it to 0. And the second one is r.lumen.diffuse indirect.ssAO. We need to set it to 1. And now if we go here in our post-process settings, go to ambient occlusion, we can control the ambient occlusion. As you can see, it affects our scene. And if we go here in buffer visualization, scroll down to ambient occlusion, we can see it now. So it's working as before, and you can override that with these console variables, and you can control it here as well. You can increase the quality of it, you can control the power, the intensity, all of these settings, and that's instead of keeping Lumen using its own AO calculations on its own, if you want to override it with screen space ambient occlusion. There is another option as well related to screen tracing. By default, it's set to scene color, but I tend to set up to anti-aliasing scene color because it supports translucency in a better way, and it reduces the flickering from the small emissive sources. So it will give you much better quality and more consistent. And then here in our post-process settings, we can go down and explore these settings. First of all, ray lighting mode. If we go here in Lumen scene, surface cache basically is trying to represent these meshes in a lower resolution, so it can get the indirect lighting and reflections from it, but it's not using hardware ray tracing. So if you want to use hardware ray tracing, you can go to head lighting for reflections. And also this one is really important for mirror reflections or shiny surfaces, so it will give you better reflections in it. And as you can see, it already has much better details. And this one, heat lighting for reflections, it uses better shadowed rays with the reflection path. So it can give you much better reflections and representation in your scene, but it can fall back to surface cache in the second bounces. But here in head lighting, it's much better because it uses these rays not only for reflections, it's also using these rays for indirect lighting, bounces, and reflections as well. So technically, this is much higher in cost, but it gives you the best possible quality from Lumen. So we can notice it in here. This is head lighting for reflections. As you can see, it's not perfect in here, but head lighting is much better already. And this is surface cache, the cheapest option possible. So let's set it to head lighting, which is the best possible option in here, but it's the most expensive option as well. There is also in advanced options, there is diffuse color boost. It actually multiplies your base color values or diffuse values in your materials, and that increases the indirect light bounces. But this is physically incorrect, but it's really useful if you want to have much better indirect lighting in your scene, and it's closer to what actually the path tracing is doing. So if we try to set it to 4, as you can see, it's really bright currently, and it has a lot of indirect lighting. And if we wanted to visualize it, we can go to Lumen scene, and as you can see, it's really bright. This is 1. As you can see, this is default color values in here. This is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So the max you can go is 4, and usually these values are recommended to stay between 1 and 2, so you are not multiplying it by a very high number. But it could be very useful for areas that you don't have a lot of indirect lighting in there and you don't want to increase the amount of lights or indirect light intensity in your lights. Also, there is a skylight leaking, which is really useful if you have a skylight and your interior is still a little bit dark. You can quickly go here and increase the leaking, and you might notice it in here. As you can see, this is a very subtle here in this scene. I actually don't recommend to use this option a lot, except in a few places. Let's go to reflections here. First of all, we can use a high quality translucent reflection. As you can see, it gives you much better reflections on your glass. And if you go here in Lumen scene, and turn off this one and get back here and ensure it's surface cache, your reflections will not work really good. As you can see here, it's giving you much better details on the translucent or reflective surfaces. Same goes for max roughness to trace. And if we wanted to visualize it better, go to let lumen dedicated reflection rays. And here, everything that is not in red is not getting calculated with lumen reflections properly. So what happens if we increase this number? It will start including more objects in there, and it's almost everything added in there. So that will give us better reflections. So as we can see now, this is before and after. It's tremendously changing these meshes in here and giving it better and better reflection quality. As you can see, it's already much better and more cinematic, but for sure this affects your performance a lot. So if you are aiming for performance, you might need to reduce this number below than 0.4, and this is controlled by your roughness maps or your roughness multipliers in your materials. The more meshes you have with lower roughness value, that will affect your performance as well, and you might not know why. And here for max reflection bounces, this is related to how many reflections you will see inside your reflections. Same goes for max refraction bounces. If we try 2, it will give you slight better details in very small objects. What the aim is to get closer to what path tracing can actually achieve. So that's basically it for Lumen. If you want to have more details, we created a session before. It was a live session around 4 hours, and you can get it for free if you joined our community and ask it for your free license of it. So feel free to join the community from the link down below and ask for your free license so you can get it and watch it. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.